Leanne Boschman's poems have been published in Great Geist magazine, Prism, Other Voices, Dandelion magazine, Room magazine, Arc Poetry, and Grain. Her poetry collection, Precipitous Signs, a rain journal, was published by Leaf Press in 2009. In it, she explores colonial narratives of settlement and the lived experiences of women in labor markets and domestic settings. She completed her PhD in the Languages, Cultures, and Literacies program at SFU and has worked as a curriculum developer and educator for several BC post-secondary institutions. Born in Saskatchewan, she presently lives on Vancouver Island on the traditional territories of the Cowichan tribes and the Malahat Nation. So let's welcome Leanne.
Thank you. Thanks, Carol. I just want to say thanks to you, Candace, first of all, for all you do to help us get our poems out in the world. Really, very much appreciated. Thanks, Carol, for hosting today, and to everyone for spending a bit of time with poets today. I just wanted to say too that in spite of any technical difficulties, what it makes me think is that we just realize how much more precious it, for me anyway, to hear Chris's words. And I was reminded that of a poem by a poet, American poet, Adrienne Rich, who died in 2012, but I've always thought of her as a kind of a mentor and kind of a poetic beacon for me, someone who's been a role model. And in her poem, Atlas of the Difficult World, and I guess that includes technical difficulties, she says that even the alphabet is precious. And I just wanted to read a little bit of that poem as in honoring our poetic forebears. This is just an excerpt. I know that you are reading this poem by the light of the television screen, where endless images jerk and slide while you wait for the newscast from the Intifada. I know that you are reading this poem in a waiting room of eyes met and unmeeting, of identity with strangers. I know that you are reading this poem by fluorescent light in the boredom and fatigue of the young who are counted out, count themselves out at too early an age. I know you are reading this poem through your failing sight, the thick lens enlarging, these letters beyond all meaning, yet you read on because even the alphabet is precious. So that's Adrienne Rich. So I just wanted to begin my reading with a poem to acknowledge that on Friday we had our second Truth and Reconciliation Day in Canada, and I was lucky to be part of a march in Duncan here on the island, and there were several thousand people in our small city of Duncan who marched together, and it was a very powerful experience. So this poem is based on a Niska celebration called Hobie, which is a Niska New Year, and I was able to attend it a couple years in a row when I was living in Vancouver in East Van, invited by my Niska friend Sherry Small. And so I'd like to start with this, a blessing. At Hobie, a celebration in the heart of the city, far from my friend's northern home, a large canvas crescent moon and star were suspended from the ceiling of the old Peony Hall, portent of an ample harvest of berries and salmon. When the final dance of the night began, people moved down the worn bleachers in a way that was both casual and dignified. And I suddenly felt remote from where my own ancestors had started out, or where they had set down on land that was handed to them after they had lost their homes somewhere else, but two wrongs didn't make it right. So when the last dance began, I wanted to stay in my seat, But because my friend had asked me to join her, I made my way to a place where I was carried in the current, all our feet moving to the clack and boom of drums. I want my words to be as accurate as possible when I describe the flow and surge, call and response, the step then wait of that crowd. No matter where it moved, there was a center, and when Swan's Down was blown up in the air, it drifted like glistening starlight onto the hair and shoulders of the dancers, a blessing for all to see. Thank you. I've so much enjoyed Chris's poems about animals, and I wanted to just read one that is from the period of time when we were in lockdown, and I'm sure we all have our own memories and images and that resonate with that time, and for me this is mine, called Front Porch. I learned to plump up my hours, trace the shiver of a leaf, a petal drift, here nestled amongst my books, sipping coffee by the window. I watch a cat creep over a rooftop across the street, recall how I traveled to distant cities, ambled with others along cobblestone streets, sniffed at the centuries, old dust in the cathedral before it sent cinders into night sky. I tasted pink-fleshed shrimp on a beach, at my feet waves lapping, licking, devouring the delicious world. Now this apartment I often left, suitcase in hand, must be cafe and musée. But today it's my rambling shack in the woods. Robins nest in its rafters, the fledglings' insistent hunger, beaks open even before their eyes, and I've become the tired hound that sprawls here, lays its head down on the splintered planks of the front porch. Okay, another poem about the creatures, the marvelous, wonderful, weird creatures in our world. And these are creatures from my neighborhood in this part of Vancouver Island and Shawnigan Lake. We have some wild turkeys that roam around in a flock, and they are the most curious and homely and otherwise now to me beloved creatures. So this is wild turkeys. Besides their small heads, bulky bodies, and scaly straws for legs, they don't match. Some have blue tinged faces, others red. And what the hell are those things growing out of the middle of their foreheads called? I used to wonder when turkeys strutted up to my front doorstep. Those small horn-like protrusions are wobbling blobs. But I no longer need to know. Don't do an internet search. Instead, name one bird, Google. What's certain is that they've been out there doing it. Hoarse squawks and bellows in the bushes. They've reproduced. Wild, domesticated, wild once more. A neighbor said that a farmer once brought turkeys to Vancouver Island, but they flew the coop. Laid low somewhere, that emerged in small flocks. Visitors ask, are they wild, like the original native turkey species of North America? I simply don't know. I'm forewarned they will mess up a garden or flap onto a car and flail about, scratching paint and window glass. But they've never committed these delinquent acts on my yard or on my watch. They just show up once or twice a week when I'm having a tough morning. And because they look like something kindergarten kids would make out of plasticine, laughing so hard they drooled, while attaching random appendages, wild turkeys make me smile. With their gawky gait and low, cackling reassurance, they make me smile and never ask if I'm a runaway. They seem to know at some time we've all escaped from something or somewhere. They seem to say, you there, with your weed patch of self-doubt and overgrown brambles of grief, you belong here too. Just find your flock. Yeah, they're wonderful. I have neighbors now who have put up a sign that says, slow down, turkey crossing. I haven't gotten one of those yet. Maybe I will. Okay, I think maybe I'll read this one that is just a little sense of, again, my neighborhood here where I live on Vancouver Island, where there's a railway line that runs from Courtenay all the way down to Victoria. And it's probably about 8 years ago they stopped those daily runs, and it's been a huge kind of a controversy recently about whether the train will be up and running again, because of course the infrastructure has really deteriorated now in these last years, and we're trying to think of so many ways to cut down on carbon emissions, and it seems to make a lot of sense to, if there is a railway line there, why don't we use it? But it's complicated and anyone's guess at this point. But this is my poem called The E and N Railway. Hewn and squared, these railway ties are splintered remnants of schemes that proved too grand for this island, an enterprise that once shunted through old-growth forest. Alongside Shawnigan Lake, the train no longer sways past summer cottages, some with only a mossy lattice for a roof, hearths exposed to rain. Steel rails that once gleamed now keep company with a calligraphy of curses, declarations of love scrawled on the waiting platform, littered with bottles, cigarette butts. Wild sweet peas, clumps of clover overgrow the aspirations of coal barons. I walk these tracks years after I lurched away from that first town with my baggage of blizzards, betrayals, and a grassy fragrance of fields and prairie sage. This track is a lakeside trail where once I heard the most ecstatic treetop chorus of finch, varied thrush, arbutus, a vestry for their song. I follow this scrap of past ambitions when, almost erased by snow, lake keeps its own counsel, and in spring trudge through cold muck left by floodwaters, shoreline dank with cottonwood. In late summer, when sundows as rose hips and wasps settle on beaded ooze of blackberries, imagined itineraries are all but forgotten. So just a couple more I'm going to read. I'd like to read this next one for Una Berry, who sent me the loveliest words of encouragement and said she thought that this was a love poem, and I think for sure it is. It's called Sunday Picnics, and it's about a neighbor who bless her, has since passed away, but lived here in Shawnigan Lake, just on the adjacent street, and about a visit one afternoon to her home, and it's for Pam Sherwin, Sunday Picnics. At one end of our street, tangled branches of cedar, arbutus, honey locust thrust above the wire fence of Acacia Manor that keeps its inhabitants safe from the perils of forgetting or remembering. On the same street, your days are still spent in this small kitchen, a husband's loyal ministrations, afternoon tea and blackberry crisp. When a name or word tumbles off the shelves of recall, you throw back your head and laugh. Tell me again of your childhood in Wiltshire County, Sunday picnics lying on fallen megaliths, sun-heated sarsen at Stonehenge. Impossible to know beyond the eclipse of centuries what was worshipped there. With no concern for misplaced bric-a-brac of memory, you recollect giants, their lichen-dappled heads rising up into outspread sky dotted with blackbirds. After this whirl of words, what occupies your silence? Perhaps a still warm imprint on your back. You listen to what archaeologists, doctors, even a husband cannot hear. Ancient whispers in stone. I'd just like to end the reading. I'm just going to read a couple sections from the last poem in my collection called Morning Fog. And we have the most incredibly beautiful morning fog, sometimes all day fog in the winter here that just hovers on the lake itself. But it's just very beautiful. It just in the little valleys and the depressions around here, they're just always in the winter, these wisps of fog. It's quite beautiful. These mornings, I wonder what I am inside this fog. What part of me is fog? Part of me is fog, call it breath, patience, threshold. Fog whispers, here's your answer. Hear how particles of prayers hover. What I am making of my soul, a first shearing lamb's wool, winding a skein, knowing all you've gathered will be unraveled. Tiny glass seed beads of light on the lake, each sequin gesture towards love. Pure shearling, sacred, undyed, yearning to be tinged by prismatic devotion. Troubles of this world pass, the rowers soon out of sight. What is left is this soul-shaping artisan ship of liquid, stratus hovering over the lake at this dew point of my day. And one last thing here, I was just going to share my screen so that I could show you the cover of Chris's book and then the cover of mine, as we had some lovely help, support, and contributors with that. Here, so there is Chris's book with Ona Berry on the front. And there is the cover of mine, which the image that you see is, how about that?
Lovely.
Okay, so there it is. Yeah, I wish it could be a slightly better image, but you get the idea. We thought that would be better than holding the books up to the screen.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try to change the screen view here. I would like to go to gallery view if I can, so I can see everybody. Ah, there we go. Now I can see you all, and that's a relief. I wanted to thank both of our poets. My goodness, I feel blessed by their words. I really do. It's been a beautiful experience. So thank you both very much. And this is an opportunity for you, the audience, to ask questions or make comments. I'm sure there are many ideas going through your head or emotions that you think.
I can say something quickly. I love fog because I love fog anyway. It's so mysterious and eerie and otherworldly. So you're lucky, Leanne, to be living in a foggy place in the winter.
Yeah, and the imagery for me, like both of you, brought me right into the poems, to the landscape of the poems. Sita, it's yours.
All right. Beautiful poetry. It was so lovely to hear. I have a question. What is the best way for us to purchase these books if we wanted to, online or in person with the individual or through a particular website? Because that can make a difference sometimes for the author.
Candace, do you want to talk to that?
Yes, I can answer that. You can go into any local retail bookstore or library and order it through iPage worldwide. So you don't have to search out the author. And actually, that's going to be your cheapest way of buying it. Because once you go through websites, they're charging you fees and they're charging you mail costs. So it's actually beneficial to the purchaser to go to their local bookstore. If they don't have it in stock, which they probably won't because it's not a best-selling book yet, they can order it in. If they say, oh, I can't, say, it just goes through iPage. Look up your iPage catalog. If they happen to say, oh, I don't have an iPage catalog, I say, well, you should get one. I do all my book ordering through that, but most every store has that. That's your cheapest, easiest way of buying it. If you can't buy it that way and you're way out in the sticks and there's no store, you can go to our website, silverbowpublishing.com, or you can go on to amazon.com, and no, it'd be .ca, I believe, because this is Canadian writers. Either one, you can order it through Amazon, our website, or the bookstores, and the bookstores are your cheapest way of getting the book.
Thank
That's all
you
I have
for
to say.
that answer. Perfect. Thank you.
I should say one other little thing. I am so enamored of Edward Epp's artistic talent. That book cover is just absolutely gorgeous. And I thank you, Edward, for your talent, and for Leanne having that on the cover of her book. That's going to be a selling factor within itself.
I know I just had my hand up. I just want to say really quickly that turkey poem just made me feel so good and smile and chuckle. And with Thanksgiving coming up, I just so appreciate it. And I want to share it with so many people. So I hope I can find the video link up when this is published and send it out in advance of Thanksgiving. It was just so beautiful and lovely and heartwarming. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to end up getting that up, edited sometime today or tomorrow, and up on the website, and I'll put a Facebook link and all this, that, and the other stuff.